And welcome to this special YouTube exclusive Black and Gold Banneret preview where we are interviewing the cross country team with Coach Bryan Jackson, and UCF's cross country legend Anne-Marie Blaney is here with me today. First off, Anne-Marie, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Glad to be here.
Awesome. Coach Jackson, how's your summer been?
Summer was fantastic. So I appreciate you having me on here. Definitely had a restful summer and ready to get going here in a week.
Excellent. Well, as many people are getting excited for the first football game of the year on September 1st, you guys are going to be up and at 'em early the next day for your first cross country meet of the season for the UCF Invite on September 2nd. So, how does it feel to start the season off at home?
Good. I always like starting off at home because we don't have to travel. I mean, just kind of stay in our training routine and just kind of just treat it as like the hard day for the week, the hard training session for the week, and just kind of get that first competitive effort out of the way as we knock the rust off and get ready for the rest of the season.
What would you say is special about this year's group, and how would you compare them and contrast them to last year's?
Um, I I think what's special about this team is they've bonded very quickly, right? It's almost like we've added these 8 freshmen in here, but it's almost the team dynamic and the team feel and like the practices. It's almost like it's been natural and like they've been here for the last couple of years, right? And so they've freshmen have really made themselves at home. And they definitely worked hard this summer, and we're going to see a lot of freshmen factoring into our top 7 this year, and so that's going to be exciting.
Anne-Marie, as someone who's gone through through this experience, how important is that team dynamic in order to succeed?
It definitely is an important dynamic to have because cross country is such a team sport, and you guys really like doing cross. You want to have each other's backs, and know that you're working for more than just your individual result. So I feel like having that strong bond with each other will translate into the race course where you're like, okay, I'm tired, I'm hurting, I'm no longer doing this for myself. I know that my points count just as much as somebody else's, and you're kind of only as strong as your weakest link. Because that's where you really need that fifth person, but they could also be the one who adds the most amount of points. So that's where the score kind of differentiates um, big time in cross. So yeah.
So you have a little bit of turnover this year, but you still return for this year a very young, youth heavy team with only 3 listed upperclassmen
Yeah.
on the roster. Can you now I don't now if there's anything I've learned covering track, it's that in cross country, it's that the eligibility for them is separate, so it can get a little bit wonky. But can you talk about what it's like to coach such a youth heavy group?
Um, I think a lot of excitement, optimism, like very optimistic about the future. I think sometimes having a group that's a little naive, right, can be good. Because they talk about maybe some races that they want to be in that maybe they don't quite belong, but that's okay because they believe they do, and they're gonna go take a shot at it. And so I think having that naivety and that optimism is really good for this group right now. And I'm just kind of feeding into it, like, yeah, we always talk about a quote that Molly Seidel said a couple years ago after she got the bronze medal in the marathon, right? And she was asked if she that was her plan to go up in front and run in the front, and she's like, "Now my plan was just to be in a race I didn't belong and see what happened," right? And like I'm like, that's kind of what I'm talking to this group about. Is like, let's just go find ourselves in a race that we don't think we belong in and take a shot at it. Because that's when we figure out how good we really are.
One of those 3 upperclassmen, Charlotte Crook, she was one of your top runners last season for coming in second place on the team consistently throughout the year. She's back for her last season. How important is her, I guess, senior leadership because of how youth heavy this team is?
Important. Charlotte's been a very strong leader for us, not just last year, but really her junior year, then her senior COVID year, and now her grad school year. So she's got a lot of experience in kind of this leadership role. And the girls really look to her as like a big sister. And every year she's kind of embraced that role more and more and more. And I think now she's really putting herself in a position where, like, she's almost like a second coach out there, right?
No, yeah, I also saw that she also has had a very good other track years over the course. She has now the the program outdoor 1,500-meter record and the indoor 1,000-meter record. Can you talk about that kind of transition? Because I know Anne-Marie made a similar navigated a similar circumstance during her time with the program. So can you talk about how going from the longer track and field events to these cross country events?
Yeah, so Charlotte's a young lady that came in really track minded, like 800-meter runner, and she's really kind of developed over the years into more of, kind of that cross country, longer distance kind of mentality, where, like, we're gonna see her running some longer races on the track probably this outdoor season and indoor season. But she's definitely grown a lot from being the young lady that came to campus thinking that she was purely an 800-meter runner to, the well-rounded distance runner she is today.
Anne-Marie, did you kind of go through a similar evolution, whether it's in the same direction as Charlotte or the inverse direction when you were here, and just your perspective on that navigation of the longer track and field and the cross country?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I came in probably more of a longer distance mindset than she did. Because I feel like, say I ran the mile or 2 mile in high school, but then coming to college, it's easier to excel in the event that's like one step up or like a little bit further. So I feel like a lot of people who are in high school think they're a miler, they get to college and they're like, oh my gosh, the milers are so fast. So then they become 5K runners. And then the 5K runners who dominated in high school, all of a sudden they're like, okay, the 10K might be more my speed in college. So I feel like everyone kind of steps up an event when they join a collegiate team, which isn't exactly what everyone wants, but it kind of opens the door for you to be a little bit more successful. Because less people want to run the longer races anyway, so your chances of scoring or placing are a little bit higher the longer distances you go up, because less people want to do it. So
I want to go ahead and just turn the attention to the schedule really quick. So I mentioned before, you start off with your home meet on September 2nd. Then a couple of weeks later, you guys head out to Florence, Alabama to run at the North Alabama Showcase.
Huntsville, Alabama, actually.
Okay, it's listed as Florence on
they host over in Huntsville.
Is it the same course? Because I noticed that the NCAA South Regional Championship is listed as Huntsville. Is it
the same exact course? The only difference is the race on the 15th, mid-September, will be a 5K, and then obviously when we go back to the NCAA South Regional, that'll be a 6K.
Is it how important is it for you to get the team out there to kind of preview the course essentially for the regional?
It's nice. It's definitely nice to have a comfort level with a course and kind of know what to expect, and like know like when the challenging portions of those courses are coming and kind of preparing yourself for that. There's definitely something nice about that. I think more important than that is the level of competition we want to face and preparing ourselves for the appropriate level of competition. I think that's one thing that North Alabama race is going to give us. Some of the other teams there are going to be highly ranked top 10 type teams in their respective regions. And so it gives us an opportunity to really challenge ourselves. And the same thing when we go to Texas A&M. I feel like that'll be another race where we're going to see a lot of teams that we don't normally see that are highly ranked in their regions, and going to give us that opportunity to really challenge ourselves against that competition.
You also, of course, have the FAU Invitational over in Boca. I noticed that a lot of your team's best performances last year either came at the home meet for which of course being their home course makes a lot of sense. But they also had a lot of their best 2021 finishes at the FAU Invitational. So how important is it to to get your group back there?
I think the FAU meets is good for us because it kind of gives us that break in between two like really highly competitive meets to get a chance to then like have a nice big training block, not travel again and get on a flight in between those two, but have a nice, really good training block between the North Alabama meet and the A&M meet, and really kind of focus on training through that segment of the season to prepare for that championship stretch.
All right. So, Coach, you ended up finishing about in the middle of the pack in the conference, in seventh in the conference tournament last time. What do you think this team can do in order to improve on that this season?
Yeah, I think what this team needs to focus on each week, and this is what we're talking about, is just pursuing the best versions of ourselves in that week that we're in, right? And I think in the past we've gotten too caught up in chasing a result at the conference meet and talking about that too early in the season. And what I really want from this group right now is to have the best August of training we've ever had, right? Because that's what we can control right now. And I believe that that group does that, and then we can start racing and start, take advantage of each of the competitive opportunities we have and grow as a team through each one, and race with a level of togetherness, right? We talk about like having a pack mentality in our racing. If we can race with that kind of a pack mentality and that level of togetherness, and we can grow from race to race, I think the talent is there to have a really high, really, really high team finish, and maybe challenge, the best team finish that this UCF has had in the American Conference, at the end. But it takes us each week, each training cycle, each race, taking that next step forward and growing as a team, as we get closer and closer to competitively what should be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, and I feel like every cross country season is basically made over the summer, and then next best thing is August, like right before school starts, where everyone's kind of moving in and getting used to, the new year, and what that looks like. Because people move in typically about a week or so before school starts. Is that still the case?
Yep.
And then yeah, then everyone can kind of practice, get all the compliance issues out of the way. So then when school starts, everybody's ready to go. And then also touching back on how young the team is, I feel like that gives you, Coach Jackson, like a chance to instill a majority of like what you want from a team. You get to build these athletes. So I feel like having so many freshmen is always something to be excited about. There is going to be, attrition here and there, but I mean, to have 8 freshmen and then build from there, you can hope that, a couple will make it all the way, and then you're left with awesome leaders like Charlotte and Katie, who even from a distance, I can just tell, like, that they are, they really have embraced the roles of leaders on that team, and I'm not even at practice every day. So it's really cool to see that, behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think the combination of having that group of upperclassmen and those freshmen, it's kind of a good dynamic, but have that balance between that seniority and that youth.
Yeah.
But I also know there's a lot of the juniors and sophomores that are waiting in the wings to be leaders, right? And like,
Yeah.
it's exciting to see how these young women grow from year to year and embrace more of a leadership role. So I know there's a group that when Charlotte and Katie graduates are really ready to step up and fill those shoes too. So it's
Yeah.
always fun to watch in college athletics.
It'll hurt, but it'll be good.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Coach, you mentioned that you wanted to focus on this being the best August of training you guys have ever had, and we're pretty late in August now. So how would you say your August training has gone so far, and do you think it's living up to that kind of goal you set?
Absolutely. We're definitely ahead of pace from last year. Like I'm kind of a creature of habit, so there's a lot of similarities between like a type of session I do this year and this what I did a year ago today, right? And so I can really kind of look back and compare apples to apples. And there's not a returner on this team that isn't running at a higher level through a lot of these sessions this year than they did a year ago last year, or a year ago the same time. And so and then the freshmen are really filling in, and and mixing it up in there. And like I said, there's going to be a lot of freshmen that are going to be challenging the upperclassmen for those top 7 spots. So it should be fun.
You mentioned how you want to go for your best result in the American Athletic Conference Championship, and this is going to be your last American Conference Championship coming up with the Big 12 move coming in 2023. So can you talk about your anticipation on that Big 12 move and the competition, maybe change in competition level from the American to the Big 12? Is it more of a lateral move? Is it a jump up?
It's definitely not a lateral move. Let's be honest there.
Yeah.
BYU is joining the conference with us in the Big 12, and they're right now one of the top 5 cross country teams in the country, if not top 2 or 3. Oklahoma State is always a team up in the top 10 and challenging for a podium in NCAA's. Iowa State is another team that's a top 25 and usually a top 10 team. And so it's definitely not a lateral move. But like anything, with challenges in life, you got to rise to the occasion. And I think we're just all really excited about the new challenge that faces us going to the American. It was definitely fun to win, going to the Big 12. It was definitely fun to win those indoor and outdoor titles last year in the American, and the track side of things. And we want to win more titles here as we go into our last year in the American. And then we're all looking forward to the challenge of winning titles when it comes to the Big 12.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a new challenge. I feel like a lot of, especially during cross country, you don't really encounter some of those teams until you get to sometimes not even the regional level. Because I know BYU is in a completely different region. So you'll be running into a lot of teams that you haven't seen before.
Yep.
And a lot of the girls are going to be like, whoa. But I think it's always good to see what's out there. So no one becomes kind of complacent with just competing against a few, maybe like local colleges or things like that. It's kind of cool for everyone to see the big picture. And I always felt like that during my experience at UCF as well. Because we didn't really leave the state of Florida for competition all too often until like regionals. So it's awesome that you guys are getting to travel a little bit earlier without, getting on the plane too much, and getting kind of like those eye-opening experiences and learning like the regional and championship courses ahead of time. So I think there is an advantage to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to dive in a little bit on, because I know mentioned earlier about the youth heaviness of the team, and I want to just dive in a little bit. Can you tell me who do you think stands out to you of this latest crop of freshmen? Because I had the chance to actually meet a couple of them at the UCF Football Fan Fest.
Oh, nice.
And they were really, really great. And I noticed that you actually that you guys have gotten in on the Twin U action.
The what?
The Twin U action. We have the Hendricks brothers, the Henderson twins, and now we have Paige and Riley on your team.
Yep, we got a set of twins on the team. So, I think you met a couple of the freshmen at Fan Fest. I think the 2 freshmen that have kind of really stood out to me from a training perspective right now, like honestly, when it comes to like what they're gonna do racing wise, who knows? Like you just don't know, right? But from a training perspective, Isabella Richardson, the young lady from Auckland, New Zealand, and then Penelope Sosa, coming up to UCF from Miami area, are the 2 young ladies that are really standing out training wise. But they're all you can tell every single one of them put in work this summer in preparation for the season. So they're all. I'm very excited about every single one of them, but. From a training perspective, those 2 have definitely stood out.
Anne-Marie, can you talk about what it was like in your freshman season right before you started doing collegiate cross country for the first time?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we had 4, not the sets of twins weren't on the team. We had 1 set of twins on the team, but then there were 3 other girls at least on the team who were twins. So we had a ton of twin people on the team. But yeah, so just my freshman year, we started off with, I want to say 10 newcomers. So we had a really big team, and it was a lot of girls who saw themselves as more of track runners, but understood that there is value in a cross country season before that. So it was just a lot of hot workouts, getting through with a bigger team, made it a lot more fun, made the cold tubs a lot easier. I don't know, it's just really fun to connect with so many different girls, and then you get to join the track team, and that's like a whole nother dynamic and different group of friends that you saw in the fall. But yeah, and then it's cool you can have your track athletes also come out and watch and support the cross country team to kind of see what those girls are working towards before the others hit their first season. Because the distance runners are going year round constantly. So it definitely feels good to have that kind of support from them too and get excited for their season coming up too.
Coach, coach, who do you think on this team has made the biggest jump from last season to this season of the returners? We talked about Charlotte and how she's been consistently performing highly on the team, but who do you think could be a returner that could jump up there with Charlotte or has made the biggest jump over the course of the year?
That's a great question. I think one young lady I definitely have to give a lot of credit to is Brenna Mullaney. She made a big jump last outdoor season to move up and put herself in a position in the steeplechase and got on the podium at the outdoor meet. And she's definitely a young lady who, after that result, we started thinking, oh man, if she has a similar type of cross country season, like she can definitely get up there and mix it up and be, someone in our top five. So Brenna Mullaney is definitely one of them. Mackenzie Zurak has definitely put in a lot of work this summer. I'm really excited about where she's at right now, and where she can go. And then Mariana, she made a massive jump last cross country season. This was a young lady that had never broken 20 minutes in a 5K before this time last year, and she opened up her season in the 18s, right? And that was kind of her first season of like really breaking through and seeing herself as a cross country runner. Before that, it was like, well, I'm a half miler and a mid distance runner, and that was the season she really started seeing herself as, oh no, I'm also a cross country runner. And so now that she's going into the season already with that level of confidence, I definitely can see her making another big jump this season. So definitely those three. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but those are the three that kind of really pop in my head right from this, when you asked me that.
I remember watching Brenna compete in the steeplechase last outdoor, and I was very curious because I had actually never seen the steeplechase in action before.
What?
And I know it's like track and field needs to be exposed more because I mean it seems like it only pops up
Especially
maybe
distance running in track and field.
but with the steeplechase, that the difference in it with the different I don't want to call them hurdles because it's not the same thing, but the longer bars that you have to jump over and
barriers. We like to call them barriers because they don't move.
Yeah.
and then also the water, the little pit of water there too, water there too. I was just kind of curious because I know cross country has its kind of elevation differences, maybe however minor in the course. Does doing the steeplechase kind of uniquely prepare Brenna to succeed in cross country?
Yeah, I definitely think that you're going to face a similar level of adversity in a steeplechase race as you're going to face in a cross country race. And so I do think there is some crossover there for sure. Obviously, the longer track races, the 5K and 10K, they really relate because of the length of them. But the steeplechase, I think, also really relates because the adversity and the challenges you face during a race are pretty similar to some things you'll face during cross country.
Yeah, you're like surrounded by like more of your competition all going over the barrier at the same time, and like
Yeah.
you could say water, like running through mud or something like that. But I think it's like just giving the girls like it probably gave her a taste of like, okay, that was really fun. I did something a little bit different, and I've had a taste of what it's like to podium there, and I'm hungry for more. I think that, and like the huge jump that she made from 20 minutes to 18 minutes, like that's a taste of like, oh my gosh, I want more of this. So that almost starts like the momentum going where they hopefully will be like, oh, I can PR here a little bit by, even if it's just by a few seconds, like even that's motivating because it does get harder the lower your times are to PR, but those seconds start meaning more and more. So
Anne-Marie, what like a key for someone to make a big jump that that Coach Jackson talked about earlier with Mariana? Like you have some experience under your belt, but what necessarily do you think a athlete needs to make that jump once they got maybe a year or so of college experience under the belt?
yeah, I feel like as athletes, you have all these people who are here solely to support your career. But I think the biggest changes happen when the athlete decides themselves that they want to be better and they start making like the little decisions to like be more successful, whether it's doing the little things like rolling out and stretching. That habit can start a whole chain of reactions after that. And I think when they decide in their heads, everything else just feels easier. If you want to be good but you kind of don't do all of the things necessary to be good, it almost feels more like a chore. But when you are all in, it's so much easier, it's more fun. The success I feel like comes a little bit more naturally. So I feel like that would be the way to go.
Coach, what do you think? What do you want to see this team accomplish between now and your home meet in order to be where you want to be when the season starts?
Well, after tomorrow, I want to see them recover, get ready to go race. I think we got one more hard session that we're gonna get after tomorrow, kind of last hard session of the week, and then next week we'll kind of have kind of our first recovery week. We've been training pretty hard with some pretty high mileage for a little while now, and we're gonna back off a little bit next week and just kind of take an easier week early on, and get ready to go race, and then enter into a new cycle of training after that.
Anne-Marie, where I don't know if there's a certain indicator, I think is the right word. Where do you usually want to have yourself be when a season starts? Like, how do you know you're at where you want to be at?
Tired. I think you want to start off a little bit tired because you're doing a lot of mileage and starting to kind of bring the pace down before the season starts, and you kind of are working to peak at a different part in the season. You don't necessarily want to have your best race as your first one. I think like the little successes where you're getting better each race are way more motivating. And then hopefully you can peak somewhere around the conference meet because that's where a majority of girls will be able to showcase everything that they've worked for. And then regionals is kind of like icing on the cake. Whatever you can do that last meet and see how far you can make it with that. So yeah.
Yeah, you made a really good point there. Like cross country is definitely like a building. It should be like a building process where each
Yeah.
race we're kind of building off the next one and kind of stepping it up and stepping it up. And the unique thing about our sport is like we talk about this cross country season, but it's really like one or two weekends that matter.
Right.
Conference and then NCAA weekends, right? And so
Yeah.
everything else is just kind of preparation for that.
Yeah. I just want to keep on building, and then that's even the whole cross country season is a building block for the rest of the year running essentially. So
Yeah, for sure.
Coach, what do you want Night Nation to know about your sport? Because obviously, football takes up so much of people's time in the fall, and then you have the little niches for soccer and volleyball, and then you guys. So can you just talk about like what do you want Night Nation to kind of know about cross country?
Absolutely. It's 17 to 20 minutes of just grueling action of young women and young men, if we had a men's team, just testing the limits of their endurance to get through that course as fast as they can. And it doesn't take up 3 hours of your day. It takes up less than 30 minutes of your day, right? And come out and support us. And I think what you'll see is you'll see a group of women who are really committed to a common goal and a common purpose. And they're just chasing their passion. And it's fun to kind of just see and watch, athletes challenge themselves and test their limits. And this is a sport where you're testing your limits.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to running in general. I feel like a lot of people either do it for general fitness or eventually a marathon is on a lot of people's bucket lists. Or there's just a ton of races in general that I feel like people will encounter. So running is a very universal sport, and I think it's people know it's hard, but watching someone who practices it every day and then going to watch, like, say, the home meet, you can really see just like how tough these girls are. Because some people can barely get through a regular 2 mile jog a day or 3 times a week, but these girls do it almost every day and are really like putting their limits to the test in these races. So I think it's kind of a unique experience that, yeah, we may not get as much publicity or anything like that compared to other sports, but it really is a unique sport to watch, I think.
Well, people have the opportunity to do that on September 2nd as you guys get the start to your season at the UCF Invite. And I believe the ESPN Plus airs the American Athletic Conference Championship game, correct?
I believe that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, so they have the opportunity to see them there on October 28th. And of course, you can stay tuned for the rest of the season as we cover here on the Black and Gold Banneret. Coach Jackson, thank you so much for talking with me and Anne-Marie today. I appreciate it, and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. This is a blast to chat, and then to definitely get a chance to catch up with Anne-Marie. You know, we appreciate what she did here at UCF so much because she gave us some great goals to chase. And so
I'd
we're
be an assistant coach if I was there.
forever indebted to what you did here. You know? But I didn't catch what you said. So
I wish I could be your assistant coach. If I still lived in that area, I would totally.
Anytime you move back, you just let me know.
Yeah, I'd totally be your sidekick.
You're right here with me.
Well, hopefully things will work out however it works. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for joining me, and best of luck with your running career, whatever comes next with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.